I suppose, therefore, that all things I see are illusions. I believe that nothing has ever existed of everything my lying memory tells me. I think I have no senses. I believe that body, shape, extension, motion, location are functions. What is there then that can be taken as true? Perhaps only this one thing, that nothing at all is certain. Descartes. The system is about to be flipped upside down. Please keep your friends and family aware. Like, subscribe, share these videos. Please remember that none of my videos should be taken as financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. This is purely for entertainment purposes only.
To people saying you need to get an email account. Why would I need an email account? Why would I can communicate with people however I want, right? And people could not understand why they would need an email account. Once they had it and everyone was connected, it revolutionized personal communications, business. The same thing with text messaging. People are like, why would I ever send an SMS? Like, why would I ever need this? And then when you had these platforms that connected billions of people and they could form groups and they could communicate, there was literally a radical explosion in the amount of text-based communication happening on the planet. And people would never look back. I look at this the exact same way. People cannot grasp what it means to be able to transact with any counterparty anywhere in the world instantly at no cost, and what that means for society. It's very hard for people to grasp that and what that will mean for the velocity of money, for what can take place in commerce relationships, to what that means for supporting your family, for what that means. We're in this age of internet commerce, and obviously the pandemic has heightened that. It's risen awareness about that. More and more of how the economic relationships we have in our lives are mediated by the internet. And we literally are, the blockchain is like the missing layer that is needed to move to that next layer of how society and the economy moves to the internet. And digital currency is just like the liquid. It's just a part of it that's going to be ubiquitous. Actually, the real innovation, which people have a hard time even grasping, is this programmability of money, what that's going to unleash. I use the example of Uber. When the iPhone, came out, in the 2008 iPhone that had 3G and that had a GPS, big deal. I can get turn-by-turn directions on my phone. No, big deal. We're going to reinvent the transportation system called Uber, right? People can't grasp what happens when you put these pieces together.
We are witnessing the decentralized computing paradigm. Blockchain, crypto, distributed ledger is fundamentally changing the world. Every person on this earth is going to benefit from decentralized technologies.
Some of the things that have happened, the internet transformed a lot of industries, a lot of very interesting industries, from communications to information to gaming, entertainment, media. So many industries got affected by the internet, and they opened up our world. And our world is so much better for it. Well, then we ended up creating a global currency, Bitcoin, and a new way of keeping track of money on the blockchain and keeping track of data on the blockchain. And now there are smart contracts, and there's surveillance, and there are all these new technologies. Well, those technologies are going to have a bigger impact on the world than any of what the internet did.
Value, titles, tokenized assets, blockchain is a way for anything of value to transact on the internet in real time with little to no cost. How has the internet transformed society? The web has transformed how we communicate, shop, find recipes, watch TV. Knowledge is in the open, and the world has access to anything that they want to Google. Value on the web will have the same openness. This openness will allow people and businesses to participate in the global economy with ease and little friction. Financial services offered to the retail consumer. The Internet of Value will not only develop, but technologies will converge and the boundaries of money will be pushed even further. The more technology progresses, the better the quality of life we will have.
Disadvantaged school students, unskilled workers, and non-digitized companies and governments will feel the crisis much more than others. Moreover, both corporate and income inequality have worsened during the last months. So when we build the post-COVID world, when we do the Great Reset, one of the most important places to start will be to ensure that the fruits of the fourth industrial revolutions are really shared by all. It starts with equitable investments, particularly in education and reskilling. And it also implies we come up with a new framework to regulate data ownership, intellectual property and competition in the fourth industrial revolution. This requires public-private cooperation.
A new framework to regulate data, ownership, intellectual property in the fourth industrial revolution. Blockchain is unique data that is incorruptible. The files are like fingerprints that can't be duplicated. Ownership, value, identities, contracts will be accepted, and Klaus is telling us that we need to have global standards for this data. The fourth industrial revolution is a convergence of technologies.
But it always occurs to me that, what regulators quite often miss is that with digital technology, and you find this listening to the Homeland Security folks, in the UK they call them the spooks, that are very focused on public networks, you can see pretty much everything that goes on. And so there's a real disconnect actually between policymakers and how the technology works. Particularly when you're speaking about things, well, hey, market stability and how we look at the integrity of markets. A lot of this stuff is really a lot easier to do in a purely digital environment, certainly than it is in an analog paper and electronic environment. So it'd be great to come back to some of those things.
Blockchains are transparent. Governments will have the ability to surveil entire networks of value. Digital identities will link your footprint to the web to you. Every transaction will have an auditable record. The governments of the world will have the ability to tax in real time. The economic data collected will enable central banks to have precision with monetary policy and affect the sectors that they wish to affect.
In the short term, we are likely to see an acceleration of economic deglobalization, a trend which is apparent. Less goods will be produced and traded globally. COVID-19 has caused a disruption, as we all know, in global supply chains. Companies will try and source more products from neighboring or nearby countries to ensure a greater supply chain resilience in case of future disruptions. And indirectly, as you mentioned, we are also seeing a negative impact of COVID-19 on global political and economic relations. COVID-19 has not been good for US-China relations, leading to a worsening of what we call the new Cold War.
We are comfortable in a globalized world. All nations, especially the United States, do not produce what they consume. The U.S. doesn't have factories. We import our goods from other nations. We rely on other nations to produce for us. We print money out of thin air and buy the goods China produces, and this is the underlying cause of the Cold War that Klaus mentioned. The legacy system depends on dollars to run. When we talk about the Internet of Value, they have a chance to rebuild the system without a reserve currency. I believe the tensions that we see are due to this. On January 8, 2021 at 5 p.m., iTrustCapital will halt XRP trading. Please understand that iTrust will follow all SEC and IRS laws. Decentralized exchanges and VPNs are not an option. After January 8th at 5 p.m., you will no longer have the option of trading your XRP. If there is an unfavorable decision or the price depreciates, you won't have the option of trading your XRP after January 8th at 5 p.m.
And then government is going to change. And I think it's really interesting. This move from going from tribal to global is a very difficult one for a lot of governments because they're saying, well, wait a second. My power base is tied to being tribal. It's tied to my geographic border. But as we know, as entrepreneurial entrepreneurs, as internet entrepreneurs, we know that the world is open and global, and it's got and there's many opportunities to go cross border. And so what you're seeing is two kinds of leaders today. you're seeing the leaders who are clinging to the past and trying to control their borders and control the way their country operates and control their people. And then there are the leaders who are leading us to become more of a global society and opening their borders and opening up to free markets and free trade throughout the world. It's very clear that the better approach is the open approach. The greatest leaders in the history of the world have been the ones that gave up their own power for the power of all of their people. And I think that will continue to be the case. So the great leaders are going to be the ones that are going to say, let's open, let's become global, let's become a great country where entrepreneurs will want to go.
The dollar losing its reserve status will be devastating to the United States and citizens. Tim Draper is painting a picture that this should be an easy decision, but he is wrong. The world leaving the old system means that the American people are about to have a very different life. The leaders need to secure their positions in the Internet of Value. That's what this Cold War is all about. Each nation wants the most. The leaders of the world are negotiating fair terms, a level playing field.
When there was quite a bit of buzz around Libra and walking around saying, Libra was the face that launched 1,000 CBDC projects. I mean, it just seemed to go nuts.
Facebook was a catalyst for governments and central banks to prepare for the Internet of Value. Facebook is larger than most nations and accepted by the public. Despite Facebook's trust deficit, I believe the majority of the world would trust Facebook's Diem. Currency is trust. When Facebook announced Libra, they were muscling their way into central bank territory. Governments successfully stalled Libra. Now Diem is close to live implementation. I believe that the reason for the U.S. rolling out regulations is due to Diem. 80% of central banks are working on a digital currency and 50% are in the testing phase.
As a reminder, my notion and my book of the Fourth Industrial Revolution is that the innovations we are seeing today in terms of artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, advanced robotics, and many others, together constitute a new phase in human development, on par or even exceeding previous industrial revolutions in scale and impact.
Klaus describes these innovations as the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a paradigm shift that changed life forever.
It's amazing the difference now and how people are recognizing the value of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies when we had this COVID crisis, because the US decided to just print $13 trillion. Just print them out of nowhere. And so suddenly the dollars are potentially worth less than they were before. And it makes it so that Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies who have a fixed number are going to be much more valuable by comparison.
Technology is deflationary. Your cell phone has replaced the MP3 player, the camera, the video camera, the GPS, the landline, the list goes on and on. There is no longer a need to buy those items because I have a cell phone. The more deflation, the further we are from hyperinflation. What would happen if blockchain and the Internet of Value was adopted on a massive scale? What impact would that have on our economy? People will have more bang for their buck without the need of raising interest rates and making the dollar stronger. The dollar can continue its hyperinflation trajectory while technology enables weak dollars to be efficient.
So that, I think, is the challenge that we're seeing on the global level and really grasping. I think we saw that with the FSB's, the Financial Stability Board's inquiry that they put out that we commented on. How do we deal with global stablecoins, which, I mean, we've never even heard of those terms like that. And a bearer instrument is global by nature. So how do you define global? What should reach that threshold where you're thinking of it as a potential risk to financial stability?
For I found myself embarrassed with so many doubts and errors that it seemed to me that the effort to instruct myself had no effect other than the increasing discovery of my own ignorance. Descartes. Thank you for liking, watching, and subscribing. If you enjoy my work and wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. Remember to hit the bell.